side. All right, thank you all very much.
So that abruptly ended right there, but that was a live event from the Douglas County District Attorney's Office as we were hearing about two separate cases, one involving a man who was fatally shot after selling a gun to a man, and the second was about an update on a serial rapist investigation. We are continuing to monitor a number of live feeds, including this one right here, which takes us out to the White House, a live look right here as we are expecting President Trump to make an announcement involving U.S. Space Command headquarters. Right now, we don't have a live look inside the Oval Office, but as soon as we get one, we, of course, will bring that to you. In the meantime, we do want to let you know that we are continuing to follow a number of stories, including some breaking news, and that is this right here. I did want to share this social media post from the Associated Press saying that the Pentagon has now authorized up to 600 military lawyers to serve as temporary immigration judges. That is according to a memo reviewed by the Associated Press. And I did want to share a little bit more information as you are taking a live look right there from the Washington, D.C. area. The very latest being that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has approved sending up to 600 military lawyers to the Justice Department to serve as temporary immigration judges. That is according to that memo reviewed by the Associated Press. The military will begin sending groups of 150 attorneys, both military and civilians, to the Justice Department, quote, as soon as practicable. And the military services should have the first round of people identified by next week. That also in the memo dated August 27th. The move is being done at the request of the DOJ, and the memo noted that the details will initially last no more than 179 days, but that could be renewed. When asked about the move, a DOJ spokesperson referred questions about the plan to the Defense Department. Pentagon officials also directed questions to the White House. A White House official saying today that the Trump administration is looking at a variety of options to help resolve the significant backlog of immigration cases, including hiring additional immigration judges. The official said the matter should be a priority that everyone can rally around. Meantime, we are expecting to hear from President Trump inside the Oval Office, and perhaps some of those questions will involve the Pentagon authorizing military lawyers to serve as immigration judges. We are going to step away for a brief break in just a minute, but after that, we are going to head to another live event just getting underway right now, which takes us out to Minneapolis, and we will be hearing from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey as he talks about gun reform. We're going to head right there in just a moment. Stay with us. Let's now head live to Minneapolis, where Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is talking about gun reform.
And that stem not out of hate, not out of politics. These are asks that stem from a love for our children. And right now, as we are wrapping our arms around the families that have suffered so much grief, right now, as we're doing everything possible to help them, to protect them, we also have an obligation to say never again. We don't want to be the next mayor to say this should never happen in our city. One of the most shocking things is the number of mayors from around the country that have texted me that have themselves been involved in some form of school or church shooting. That in and of itself is horrific. The answers, the solutions, they're not new. They're very clear. They've been the same answers that have been around for the last 3 years, 5 years, 25 years. We were talking about some of these same solutions when I was in high school. And we have the ability now to make the kind of change that will protect families and keep kids safe going into the future. And so what are we asking for? As mayors and as community members, we are asking for a statewide and a federal ban on assault weapons. The day after the horrific shooting, there were a number of important elected officials, including many members of our Democratic caucus, that joined us in the rotunda. They are on board. They are ready for the kind of change that we need to see. Second, we're asking for a ban on high-capacity magazines. What we mean there is that you shouldn't have the ability to reel off 30 shots before you need to reload. Assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, these are devices that were quite literally built and designed to kill people. Not built and designed to hunt deer, built and designed to pierce body armor, pierce somebody's flesh, and take down a whole bunch of people all at once. There is no reason to have these kind of machinery in our cities. And finally, if state and federal officials are either unwilling or unable to make the necessary change, give us, as mayors of these cities, the ability to do it ourselves. Right now, we are preempted from virtually any kind of gun reform in municipalities, but we are impacted by it. We get the calls from police chiefs at 1 in the morning about a kid that was gunned down. We've experienced, tragically, school and church shootings. We see the aftermath and how communities are broken apart by gun violence. We have the ability to change, and so give us the authority to do it. Change the law that preempts cities from acting if you are not able to do it yourselves. The first choice, of course, the first and best way of doing this is to have a statewide and/or a federal ban on assault weapons and a ban on high-capacity magazines. But if you're not able to do it or willing to do it there, give us the ability to keep our constituents safe. That is our call. That is our ask. I know the Minneapolis delegation and well beyond is ready to act. I know Governor Walz, who is ready to sign on a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines if the legislature sends it to his desk. There is no greater obligation as government officials to keep our kids safe. And I know that we're poised to do that if we do the right thing. Next, I would like to introduce Mayor Melvin Carter, who has been a partner in this progress from day one, a very good friend, and the great mayor of the great city of St. Paul.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's an honor to stand beside all of the mayors who are here today. It's always an honor to stand beside Moms Demand Action, the work that you all do for gun sense in America, for gun sense in Minnesota, and certainly for gun sense in every city, but specifically including St. Paul, we cherish. And the progress that we've been able to make is largely due to the moms, to the dads, to the students, to the community members who make it clear day in and day out that we demand action in Minnesota. I'm proud to be the mayor of a city that takes action on gun violence. I'm proud to be the mayor of a city that partnered with Moms Demand Action to create a safe storage law. I'm proud to be the mayor of a city that decided a couple of years ago that we were going to boost our investments, in particular in non-fatal shootings, and have tripled our solve rate for non-fatal shootings and seen gunfire drop precipitously as a result of that. I'm proud of all of the work that we're doing on the local level. As horrifying as the experience we all went through last week, it also is a source of pride to know that we have first responders, that we have EMTs, that we have teachers and parents and community members and pastors and priests and elders and imams who will do whatever it takes to keep our children safe, to rally together as community members. That's what we do when there's an emergency. Everybody jumps in and does their part. That's what we saw in Minneapolis last week. That's what we see in St. Paul. That's what we see in all of these communities with all of these mayors that are gathered here together literally every single day. But let me tell you, the emergency did not start when that cowardly individual chose to point an assault rifle at children and pull the trigger. The emergency did not start when those two beautiful children, Minnesotan children, took their last breath. The emergency started when we found out that we live in a country in which the #1 cause of death for children is gunfire. All of that work that we do in St. Paul, all of that work that those first responders do, all of that work that our police officers and firefighters and paramedics do is limited by a national and statewide policy environment that enables people to have the type of firearms that wreaked that damage in Minneapolis that last week. Our request, as Mayor Fry said, agrees with the vast majority of Minnesotans. It agrees with common sense, and it's important to note it agrees with our law enforcement community. That if you want to fire 100 rounds in a matter of a couple of seconds, go join the Army. We don't have a need for those types of firearms, for those types of weapons in our community. We are asking for weapons that are designed and manufactured to be instruments of death, to be used against people. Those high-capacity weapons that are designed as assault rifles to be banned in our state. We are asking for any device that's manufactured specifically for the purpose of turning a regular firearm into a high-capacity assault weapon to be banned in our state. We don't need them in our schools. We don't need them in our rec centers. We don't need them in our neighborhoods. We don't need them on our streets. We don't need them in our communities. Today is the first day of school in St. Paul. It's an exciting and joyful day. I got a chance this morning to talk to kindergartners, to fist bump rising seniors, and to tell sixth graders how excited I was to be a sixth grader when I was in their shoes. And Mayor Fry also got a chance to talk to parents whose excitement for the moment, whose pride for their students, whose joy at jumping into another school year is also seasoned by the taste of grief, by the taste of trauma, by the taste of loss that we all feel so profoundly in our community right now. Those students, those children saw an emergency and they took action. Those teachers saw an emergency and they took action Those clergy members saw an emergency and they took action. The police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics, the first responders saw an emergency and took action. We have an emergency, and we are simply asking our legislature to do what every 8-year-old in that school knew to do last week. Take action. With that, I'd love to introduce Bloomington Mayor Tim Bussey. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Bussey. I have the pleasure and the honor of serving as the mayor of the city of Bloomington. Proud to stand here with my fellow mayors and with community members, but I'm heartbroken that we're here after yet another horrific act of violence here in the Twin Cities. Folks, I'm old enough to remember when this country literally went to war over an incorrectly perceived threat of weapons of mass destruction. Now we have an immediate threat, a very local threat, from devastating weapons right here in our schools, our churches, our communities, and our neighborhoods. Weapons of war are in the hands of people who should never, ever have the opportunity to use them, and our communities are paying the price. Since last Wednesday's shooting at Annunciation Church, we've seen the unwavering resolve of Minnesotans who are demanding change. Inaction is no longer an option. And if our state and federal leaders can't match the urgency and the determination of the people that they represent, then it's time to give cities the tools and the authority to use those tools. Give the cities the opportunity to lead, because cities have a long history of leading, stepping up when higher levels of government have stalled. Whether it's housing, indoor smoking bans, earned sick and safe leave, childcare, it was cities that led, and eventually the state followed. Because cities know how to get things done.
That's right.
We're the closest to the people.
That's right.
We feel the impact, and we shoulder the responsibility. Gun violence doesn't respect city boundaries. This isn't a big city problem. This isn't a first-ring suburb problem. This is a Minnesota problem. From Bloomington to Burnsville, from Cold Spring to Buffalo to Red Lake, our communities are hurting. And it's our first responders and our local law enforcement who are on the front line. I just want to express my deepest gratitude to the brave men and women who responded to last week's tragedy, including our police officers from Bloomington who responded. They didn't hesitate. They ran toward danger. They deserve our respect, they deserve our support, and they deserve action. They should not be outgunned. They deserve a seat at the table to prevent these tragedies before they happen. We've heard from many voices a call for better mental health resources. I absolutely couldn't agree more. That's why the Bloomington Police Department has launched a mental health rapid response pilot program, providing in-home counseling and therapy in the midst of a crisis. We've embedded social workers in our department, and we're working with St. Mary's University on community brain health. Bloomington Public Health is tackling loneliness and isolation through their Start with High program, helping people reconnect and heal. But these programs are working. They're replicable. Other cities could do them as well. But it takes resources. It takes funding and commitment. And here's the hard truth, folks. Many, if not all, of the same voices who are now talking about mental health investment were absolutely silent when the Trump administration eliminated a $1 billion school mental health grant and proposed slashing funding to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration by another $1.1 billion. If you truly believe that mental health is part of the solution here, if you're not just swapping out thoughts and prayers for mental health solutions, it's time to speak up. And it's time to step up. It's time to fight for the resources that our communities need to be safe. Cities are ready to lead, but we cannot do it alone. We need state and federal partners who understand that community safety is not a partisan issue. It's not about scoring political points. It's about saving lives. Let's all act. Let's act together before we're standing here again. With that, I'd like to introduce Kathleen Anderson from Moms Demand Action.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kathleen Anderson. I live in St. Paul, and I am one of the state chapter leaders for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm also a clinical social worker. In my work, I've sat across from children and families whose lives have been upended by the trauma of gun violence. I know how deep these wounds go. Children who can't sleep through the night, parents who carry unbearable grief, and communities that struggle to heal long after the headlines fade. What happened at Annunciation Catholic School last week is so devastating. 2 children, just 8 and 10 years old, were shot and killed in a place that should have been their sanctuary. A third is fighting for her life right now in the ICU. Their classmates and their teachers will carry wounds and the memory of that day forever, and their families will live with grief that no parent should ever endure. We know the common thread in these tragedies are assault weapons. These are weapons of war designed to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. They fire round after round in seconds, leaving children, teachers, and police officers alike with no chance to escape. When these guns are used, the devastation is not just worse, it is catastrophic. That's why Governor Walz must call a special session now, and why lawmakers must pass an assault weapons ban. We cannot wait until 2026. Every day without action is another day when a weapon of war could be carried into a classroom, a church, or a city street. When the federal government banned these guns, it worked. States that have assault weapons bans see fewer mass shootings. The evidence is clear that banning assault weapons saves lives. I also want to thank the mayors, all gathered here today, for gathering and calling for action, because mayors see the reality up close. What happens when assault-style weapons flood our streets, when families bury their children, when city resources are stretched to respond to crisis after crisis. Because here's the truth. Minnesotans' preemption laws tie our mayor's hands. We faced this head-on 2 years ago when we worked with the St. Paul City Council and the mayor's office to pass our secure storage ordinance. Even if these mayors wanted to pass local laws to ban assault weapons in their cities or to keep guns out of schools, parks, libraries, or rec centers, they can't. The state law says no, and that is unacceptable. If the legislature fails to ban assault weapons, local leaders must have the authority to protect their own communities. Repealing preemption is not just good policy, it's a lifeline. Our cities deserve the power to do what the state won't. And as a neighbor to the Capitol, I live just 8 minutes away. I'm here all of the time during sessions, and I hear elected leaders on the other side say, well, these policies just don't work for my constituents. The persistent threat of gun violence is not working for the children in my home, for the neighbors on my block, for the kids in my community, and all of the communities of the mayor standing behind me. We cannot accept a future where our children practice lockdown drills instead of spelling words, where parents live in fear of the next call from school, where communities are forever scarred by preventable tragedies. Governor Walz must call a special session. Lawmakers must ban assault weapons, and if they refuse, they must at least give our mayors and city councils the power to step up and do it themselves. Our kids deserve to come home at the end of the day. They deserve to grow up safe, and it is our responsibility to make sure they do so. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'll open it to questions, but before we get to the first one, I just want to know, we've got mayors up here from Minnetonka to Stillwater, and of the number of mayors throughout the state that are on board with this strategy here.
Sounds like you're skeptical that perhaps the divided legislature will be able to actually pass an assault weapons ban when they go to special session potentially later this month. What makes you think there'd be any appetite for them to also repeal that law from the 80s of preemption?
Look, I'm not naive to the political dynamics that take place at the Capitol, and I don't pretend to understand all of the machinations that could potentially take place as part of a special session. We need the question called. Let's have the debate. Let's have the argument. Let's move forward and take the vote, because that is what our constituents are demanding. And this is not about politics for us. This is not about politics for the mayors that are on the front lines, the teachers that have experienced so much grief, the students that need to be able to go into school and learn math and play on a playground and mess around in a cafeteria without the concern of getting shot. That is one of the most obvious things that I could possibly say. Again, I don't pretend to understand all of the politics that goes into this, but what I do know is that we need to act. What I do know is these are not radical or bizarre asks. This is common sense. For those that say we need common sense in politics, this is a great opportunity to make sure that that mentality is applied in legislation.
Let me add that.
Please.
I'd also say, and to your point of the complexities of everything that happens or doesn't happen in this building, I always tell folks that our job as mayors is to deal with the challenges that end up too hard for our federal government or our state government to address. We end up addressing those things on the front line. I think one of our goals in saying either pass a ban or move out of the way and give us the opportunity in our own communities is to offer a menu of options to say if you're not capable of passing a ban yourself, then give us the opportunity to let local voters, local communities decide. And frankly, I'll add a third, is that if even that feels like a stretch too far, for those legislators who may feel like this doesn't work for their constituents, we'll give your constituents the opportunity to decide for themselves through a statewide vote. Let's call the question. Let's put the question on the ballot. And part of my hope is that as we have this conversation, as we start this major statewide conversation, that those folks who live in some of those districts who are constituents, who say, like you just said, access to personal weapons of mass destruction doesn't work for my family, doesn't work for our children, doesn't work for our community. We ought to make sure they get a chance to stand up and say that themselves, to make sure that any legislature in any part of this state gets a chance to hear from their own constituents who need us to do something different in Minnesota.
Mayor, are you saying that you want to do a statewide constitutional amendment vote, or you're saying that cities should be able to do local referenda? When you said put the question to voters.
Again, I will say that I'll reiterate that I don't understand all the politics that occurs in this building, so I don't have the specifics where that's concerned. What I am suggesting is that it's not time to do nothing.
How many of the mayors here have stores that sell guns in their city? Are there, I'm just trying to get a count here. Does anybody here have stores?
Well, I know there's one in my city.
And I'm sorry, you're with?
Minnetonka. There's a gun store in Minnetonka.
Okay. Is there any concern that, banning at the state level, you can still cross to a different municipality and still pick up an assault weapon? I mean,
that I would say, excuse me,
Please
I would say, that's always a concern, but doing nothing is a bigger concern. The fewer, I'm a marketer by training, and if there's one thing I've learned is increased access equals increased consumption. So if you take away opportunities to get guns, there will be fewer guns used. Does it solve the problem? It does not. But does it reduce the problem? Does it mitigate the problem? Yes, it does. So while, let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good.
I have a question about the practical aspects of this. If one city bans assault weapons and the neighboring city doesn't ban it, does that mean if you carry your weapon over the city line, that would be against the law?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do you do about all of the assault weapons that are currently in people's homes? We have no idea how many assault weapons are in Minnesota homes legally right now. What do you do with that?
Again, and please weigh in, but I think that you're right. Banning assault weapons going forward is not going to solve the problem. What we're trying to do is make improvements to reduce the magnitude of the problem. Over time, those assault weapons hopefully will go away. But yeah, we're not going to go into people's homes and take assault weapons away, in my view, but we're going to ban the future sale and start mitigating the problem because we do not allow the sale of assault weapons in our cities.
Is that what you're talking about? You're saying that, is that what you're talking about with your?
So we have had bans on assault weapons nationally before. That ban then expired. And so this is not, it's not as if this is some unique thing that has never been tried. Other countries have had mass shootings. And then rather than sit on their hands, they have made the move to ban assault weapons so that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. The only difference is we haven't made that move in decades. And so we're in the position to do it now. Are there logistics that need to be worked out just like any piece of legislation? Of course there are. Of course there are. But we got to have the argument, we got to take the necessary steps, and we're in the position now to act.
Can you be more specific about, assault weapon is a fairly arbitrary term that would need to be defined. You're talking about banning certain models, certain assaultive features. Speak to how you're defining assault weapons.
Right. Generally speaking, we're talking about guns and devices that are built to be assault weapons and or devices that are built to shift non-assault weapons to be able to reel off a whole bunch of bullets all at once. And we've seen both of those in our city. We have seen the ability to simply attach a device to a non-assault weapon and suddenly it is made into one that can reel off 30 rounds. We're trying to prevent both of those things from happening.
So some models and also certain assaultive features.
That's correct.
Is there a state that has some, a number of states have some sort of restriction or ban? Is there a state that you think Minnesota or maybe Moms Demand has thoughts on this, like should model it after? Because they do, the definitions vary.
Yes.
And what's actually?
The definitions do vary. For purposes of what we're asking for today, there are, I believe, 8 states that have allowed for municipalities and cities to act. So again, we are saying the best scenario here is obviously a national ban. The next best scenario is a statewide ban. But if you're either unwilling or unable to act at those levels of government, give us the ability to take the steps to keep our children safe.
Are any of you represented in the legislature by Republicans? And if so, have you talked to them? Or, I mean, because it seems like that's where the pressure needs to be applied. Anybody?
We're all looking at you, man. I mean, we have a Democrat in the state legislature and a Republican.
Go for it, please.
Sorry. We're fortunate in Stillwater to be represented by a Democrat in the House and a state Republican in our state Senate. At this point, I haven't had a chance to talk with either of them about this initiative or even about the tragedy that happened last week, but I look forward to doing so.
Yeah, and just to be very clear again, and thank you, Mayor, we're not talking about your father's hunting rifle. We're not talking about shooting ducks and deer. We're talking about having the ability to reel off 30 rounds before you need to reload. I'm not a hunter, and I acknowledge that, but I doubt that as a hunter, that's how you do it.
Is there any talk about what the magazine capacity limit should be? You said 30 rounds. I mean,
high capacity magazines, I believe, is defined as 10 and above. But you should probably check my fact.
I have a question that's kind of in the weeds about preemption. Amir Carter, maybe, I remember when we covered the safe storage initiative, one of the ways we did that legally was that it had to do with amending code that you could control around discharge of weapons. Am I remembering that correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then I know the gun owners probably said they were going to sue it. I don't think they did if it was enforced, but like, is there anything that any mayors are looking at in terms of things you may be able to do on a regulating discharge of certain weapons, or is there a lot of gray area there legally?
Oh, those are questions that we're really interested in. It's a conversation I had with our city council president, honestly, just this morning. And you're right, our safe storage law that, folks said, this is going to be unconstitutional. And, they decided not to sue for themselves, despite all of that saber rattling. What we determined was that we were operating in a space that specifically was not preempted. We weren't actually governing how you carry a firearm. We are governing how you store it when you're not carrying a firearm. And like you said, governing discharge of a firearm. Obviously, discharge is too late, right? That we need solutions that are far upstream. And this is what you're hearing from the mayors here. We spend an enormous amount of time trying to sort of hack the problem that in Minnesota, you can go and get a high-capacity rifle that can fire off dozens of rounds in a matter of seconds in a scenario in which there's absolutely no way for people to have time to just take cover or hide, let alone defend themselves. And that is the challenge that we're trying to face. I'm sure I speak for all of us when we say we certainly are looking for spaces that give us opportunities to act in the midst of in the context of the state the state legislative environment that we're in. However, all of those things are just trying to figure out how to navigate what the real problem is. And so much of that real challenge, so much of that real problem can be solved by saying we just don't allow the sale of high-capacity assault weapons in this state. Again, our asking, there are lots of details. There are lots of details to be worked out. And we mayors, our police chiefs, our police officers, our first responders stand ready to work directly with any legislator in this building who's ready for a real conversation about how we protect our children and our families. Our demand is don't do nothing.
One more question. 2012, and our gun laws in this country have fairly changed since then. Why should this one be any different?
That's the question.
That is the question.
That's the question.
I think there's more than a few people that would say, why try, just throw up your hands, it's not worth it. Think about your children. I think about my little girls. I think about every morning getting them up, trying to get on Frida's shoes, handing her a thing of applesauce. It's these little annoyances that in the moment are frustrating.
It does look like this live feed has just frozen as Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey was talking on gun reform alongside other Minnesota officials right there. We are going to see if our content partners are going to work to get that live stream back up and running. But for now, what we're going to do is we are going to step away for a brief break. We do have a number of live events already underway across the country that we will dip into, but it does appear as though the live stream from Minneapolis is now frozen. This as we continue to wait for President Trump's big announcement from the Oval Office. This is a live look right here from the White House. Still no update from the White House communication team about when specifically President Trump will be making that announcement. It was tentatively set for 2 p.m. Eastern time, so running just a little bit behind schedule. But the announcement is set to discuss the U.S. Space Command headquarters. And we will be bringing you President Trump's announcement without commercial interruption right here on Live Now from Fox. In the meantime, away for a break. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Quinu. As we await President Trump to make a major announcement from the Oval Office, we do have another live event happening right now in the U.S. Capitol. This as the Republican Study Committee is talking about the crackdown on crime in D.C. Let's listen in.
That is why I am proud to support President Trump and my colleagues who are here today in our efforts to return order and law to Washington, D.C. Together, we will advance common sense proposals to restore order, to put victims first, to hold violent criminals accountable, and to stop the revolving door of repeat offenders who cycle back onto the streets. In just the past 2 weeks since President Trump stepped in, we have already seen the dramatic difference that decisive action takes. Carjackings are down. Violent crime is trending down. Federal coordination has strengthened detention and prosecution. And for the first time in a long while, the people of D.C. are beginning to feel safer in their own neighborhoods. That progress proves a simple truth. When you enforce the law, when you keep dangerous criminals off the streets, when you prioritize the safety of families, and when you allow law enforcement officers and prosecutors to do their jobs, you get results. The American people deserve a capital city that reflects the very best of this country, not one that turns a blind eye to lawlessness. Republicans are committed to ensuring that D.C. is safe, secure, and accountable for years to come, and we will not stop until that promise is fulfilled. I now turn it over to my colleague, Representative Fedorchak.
Thank you, Laurel. Thank you, Representative Hageman, Pfluger, for your leadership on this really important issue. I'm Julie Fedorchak. I am a representative from North Dakota, the lone member from North Dakota. As my colleagues have said, crime in our nation's capital is out of control. If D.C. were state, it would have the highest homicide rate in the country, and already this year nearly 1,600 violent crimes have been reported. I agree with the people here. D.C. is a beautiful city. It's an amazing city, and it's the best capital in the world. But it isn't safe. We all know this. In fact, I felt this myself recently in a small way, but I want to share the story. I was walking down the street in July near my apartment in Navy Yard, not very far from home, and I felt something hard hit me in the back of my head. It was in broad daylight. I was very startled. I was on the phone at the time, and just as that happened, a pack of juveniles came rushing by on their bikes. And I turned to look around and see what had happened, and a large, hard plastic object had been thrown directly at my head. Now, that was a minor incident. I wasn't harmed. But the young people who did it with reckless abandon and with zero fear of consequences. They gathered in a circle not far from me after that and sat there and laughed. The city, and there aren't any consequences. America is the greatest country in the world. There's no reason why our capital should have a violent crime rate higher than some of the most dangerous places in the world. Just as President Trump restored order at our southern border by enforcing the laws on the books, he is stepping in now to help make D.C. safe again. Many of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have falsely claimed that D.C. crime stats are at a 30-year low. But let's remember that crime is not just about statistics. It's about people. It's about the mother who sent her child.
Republicans, great Republicans. I want to thank you all for being here for this important announcement, 7 years in the making. As you know, this has been going on for a long period of time, and I am thrilled to report that the U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City. Okay, so Huntsville, Alabama, we love Alabama. I only won it by about 47 points. I don't think that influenced my decision, though, right? That didn't, right? But we had a lot of competition for this, and Alabama's getting it, Huntsville in particular. So congratulations, everybody. Katie, congratulations. This will result in more than 30,000 Alabama jobs, and probably much more than that, and hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, and that's billions, because it can't be millions, it's billions and billions of dollars. Most importantly, this decision will help America defend and dominate the high frontier, as they call it. I want to thank Secretary Pete Hegseth. He's doing a fantastic job, and Secretary of the Air Force Troy Mink. Troy, thank you very much. Great job you're doing, Troy. This is such a big deal. This is one that everybody wanted to know. What are you doing? I also want to thank Senators Katie Britt, and I want to give my condolences. Your grandmother, her grandmother just passed away. She was 100, right?
100, and she loves you, Mr. President.
Well, and she was very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Very, very proud of you. So thank you, Katie.
Wonderful woman.
She must have been. To produce you indirectly, I can tell you she had to be. Tommy Tuberville, who's a great coach. And I won't say anything about what happened with Alabama football this weekend.
Let's leave that out.
But you're not used to that, right? You're not used to that. But Tommy, Auburn won, is right. They did. So you're happy. Tommy's been a great senator, as you know, and a fantastic guy all around. He was also a tremendous coach. House Armed Services Committee Chair Mike Rogers. Thank you, Mike. Where's Mike? Mike, thank you very much. Doing great, Mike. Representatives Barry Moore, all great friends, Robert Adderholt, Gary Palmer, and Dale Strong. Thank you all very much, fellas. Appreciate it. In my first term, I created a thing called Space Force. So important. You know, we were losing the race in space very badly to China and to Russia, and now we're far and away number one in space. And reestablish SpaceCom with a mission to protect American space assets and detect any threat to our homeland. We initially selected Huntsville for the SpaceCom headquarters, yet those plans were wrongfully obstructed by the Biden administration. And as you know, they moved them to a different locale. And today we're moving forward with what we want to do and the place that we want to have this. And this will be there for hopefully hundreds of years. That's where it's going to be. I will say I want to thank Colorado. The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting. They went to all mail-in voting. So they have automatically crooked elections. And we can't have that. When a state is for mail-in voting, that means they want dishonest elections, because that's what that means. So that played a big factor also. In Huntsville, SpaceCom will play a key role in building the Golden Dome, as you know. That's going to be a big thing. Everybody wants to be a participant in it. Missile Defense Shield, we're going to be having a Golden Dome that the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. The finest, the best. And by the way, Canada called. They want to be a part of it, and that'll be great. But Canada wants very much to be included in that, and we're going to work something out with them, I hope. It will also ensure that our technological capabilities, of which we're way ahead of anybody else, there's nobody close, remain unmatched long into the future. So I'd like to ask Secretary Hegseth to say a few words. He was very much a part of it. And really, everybody behind me was. Every one of these people would call me and lobby me. I said, Katie, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I know what you want. She said, that's right, sir. That's what I want. And they got their way. So I just want to congratulate. These are really special people. They're politicians in many ways, but they're great patriots, I think even more so than politicians. So they fought very hard to get it, and it's an honor to give it to Huntsville. Pete, say a few words, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. As usual, right place, right time, for the right reason. In your first administration, you established the Space Force at a time when we knew we had to be looking to that domain of space. You also reestablished SpaceCom to ensure that priority was put in place, and you, through the Air Force, independently identified that Huntsville, Alabama was the right place to put it. For other reasons, in the next administration under Biden, they decided to move it somewhere else. Well, during that time, the DoD Inspector General, the Government Affairs Office, they did their own assessments, and where did they say SpaceCom should go? Huntsville, Alabama. So what you're doing today, Mr. President, is restoring it to precisely where it should be based on what the Space Force, the Air Force, your leadership believes will give us strategic advantage in the future. That is Huntsville, Alabama. We are way ahead in space, but this will ensure we stay leaps and bounds ahead because that's the most important domain. Whoever controls the skies will control the future of warfare. And Mr. President, today you're ensuring that happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Katie, would you like to say something?
Mr. President, we are grateful for your leadership on this and restoring Space Command to its rightful home in Huntsville, Alabama. This delegation has worked together, both chambers, both parties, to make sure that Huntsville was the place that Space Command called home. As was mentioned, obviously the Biden administration chose to make this political. What we want to do is put the safety and security of Americans first. We want to make sure that our warfighter is put first, and we want to make sure that America continues to lead. And today, Mr. President, you've allowed that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tommy, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a great day for our country, not just for our state of Alabama. We need help in our military. We need to catch up. And as Secretary Hesek said, we're not behind in space, but we know where we're at, and we need to expound on that. Now, this move will save the taxpayers $480 million. It's not going to cost more. It's going to cut $480 million. We have the plans intact. It'll be behind a secure wall in Huntsville, Alabama, at Redstone Arsenal. We have 40,000 people there. We have the FBI there. We have missile defense there. We have NASA, Blue Origin, and SpaceX. It is the perfect place for Space Command. I would tell you today, and I've spoke with the President for the last 3 or 4 years about this, if I thought it needed to go somewhere else because I understand the security of our country, I'd be for that. But the best place for Space Command is Huntsville, Alabama, because what we have and what it means to this country is going to be so important. So thank you, Mr. President, for this, and we look forward to building a huge Space Command and having the Donald J. Trump Space Command Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
Sure. Well, Mr. President, thank you. I'll be very brief here. I lobbied the president hard to put it in Ohio, but he said these people behind us, these Alabamas, are just too powerful and too persuasive, and so it's in Alabama. But as Tommy said, this is exactly the right place for Space Force and Space Command. I think Americans ought to appreciate the fact that you can't win the battle of the future unless you control the skies. The cyber security, the communications, the entire infrastructure of the battle in the 21st century will be in space. So it was a visionary move in the first administration for the president to set up Space Force, and I think an equally visionary move to make sure that Space Force is right where it should be in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, anybody want to say anything? Would you like to say?
Mr. President, another promise made, another promise kept. You think about it, Redstone Arsenal is critical to national security. The president said when you were the 45th president, let's do what's right for national security. And today, that's exactly what we're doing. It's not because of this or that. It's because it's right for national security. You think of the 21 categories that were evaluated to determine what was best for national security. All indicators pointed back to Huntsville, Alabama, and Redstone Arsenal. We have the right people at the right place at the right time. Mr. President, on behalf of the people of the 5th Congressional District and all of Alabama, thank you for keeping your word. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Anybody?
Let me just say, Mr. President, I want to say thank you. And thank you for doing this because it was the right thing to do. When they looked at all the numbers, Huntsville was the place to go, and like you say, it was unfortunately pulled out, but you made it right. So I want to just say thank you again for a grateful nation, and to the state of Alabama, we're very grateful. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Throughout history, militaries has always understood that whoever could hold the high ground held the advantage. Space is the ultimate high ground. And what we're doing with moving the Space Command to Huntsville is absolutely critical to our maintaining dominance in that sphere. And it goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do with the Golden Dome and missile defense to defend against anyone else who tries to enter that sphere. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. And obviously, national defense is a huge issue. And when you look at the scores, Alabama was #1. And for political reasons, it was moved out of our state. But, Mr. President, thank you for making priorities the defense and the warfighter and the safety of this nation. And in the big, beautiful bill, that Golden Dome will be built in Huntsville, Alabama, and we're grateful for that. Thank you.
Listen, as chairman of the Armed Services Committee, I care very much about what's most important for our national security. And the President held a nationwide competition to determine where we should have this command. If y'all remember, at the end of that competition, where Alabama came in first, there was a lot of complaints from the other states who did not place well. He said, we'll do it over with new criteria to accommodate your concerns. Alabama came in first in that second competition. His Secretary of the Air Force reviewed the results, said it was fair, and the President named Huntsville. It was the Biden administration that decided to make it political, even though his own Secretary of the Air Force said it was a fair competition and it should be in Huntsville. So I want you to know I appreciate this President standing up and being strong and saying he's going to make this right and put it where it rightfully belongs, and that's Huntsville, Alabama.
Thank you very much. Good job. So thank you all very much. You are going to leave me alone now? You're not going to call me anymore and talk about this subject, right? You promise? They'll start something else. But I just want to congratulate you. It's a very big deal. When you come out and when you leave the room, you'll see that we just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. And you'll be seeing that and you'll be reading about that. It just happened moments ago, and our great general, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's been so incredible, including what took place in Iran, knocking out potential nuclear power for a long time to come. I think within a month they would have had it if we didn't do what we did. But he gave us a little bit of a briefing, and you'll see. And there's more where that came from. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela. So we took it out, and you'll get to see that after this meeting is over. Do you have any questions, please? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Tuberville talked about the cost savings
Yeah.
associated with this announcement. Can you talk about the strategic benefits by having Space Force Command headquartered in Huntsville?
Well, it just works because we have so much else there. And having a central, you could call it a central command, but it really is a command station. Also, even locationally, where it is, and when you think about flying distances, if you can save a half an hour as fast as some of these planes go and things go, and even the rockets go, if you can save by having the best location. So we went out, as you know, to experts, and we had 4 different groups of experts. They all said this was the best location. I also loved it from the standpoint, I know the people of Alabama, they are great people, work hard, and there's no games, and they're very proud of it. And I would say they fought harder for it than anybody else also. A lot of states, 5 states really wanted it, but they wanted it more. And I kid you not when I say that these people, they spoke to me a lot. That's all they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about the weather. They only wanted to talk about moving to this location, moving to Alabama, Huntsville in particular. So we're honored to do it. They really wanted it badly, and they got it. Peter?
President Trump, something completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see you for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that. You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows, and also did a number of truths, long truths, I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own, pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff. Well, it's fake news. You know, it's just it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying, like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, you know, it's Labor Day weekend. So I would say a lot of people know. I was very active this Labor Day. I had heard that, but I didn't hear it to that extent. Go ahead, Peter.
We know that this country has a huge problem with school shootings. You've said that you're open to sending the National Guard pretty much anywhere. Would you ever consider sending an armed National Guardsman to every school?
Well, we have a big problem with school shooting, but we also have thousands and thousands of schools that run perfectly. You know, they talk about you can do things construction-wise, and that's really, I think nobody knows more about construction than me. You can build the construction doors. You can build what they call safety doors, where they lock on the outside, the inside, and every place else. Well, but if one of these lunatics happens to get through, then the police can't get in. Then they're looking for keys all over the place, and it takes a lot of disadvantages to doing, spending billions and billions of dollars and actually making it safer in some way for some of these lunatics that we're dealing with. But I don't think so. I've thrown out the concept. We have great teachers that love our children. The parents love the children. Teachers love the children too. And if you took a small percentage of those teachers that were in the military, that were distinguished in the military, that were in the National Guard, et cetera, and you let them carry, that's something that a lot of people like. I sort of liked it. It'd have to be studied, but they're trained. They know about weapons. You can't do it with every teacher because most teachers don't know, and But I always thought that would be an alternative. But it just we've had a lot of instances. Other countries have also. They have different kinds of problems than we have, but we do have. There's something going on. And it's a bad thing. Yes, please.
Have you spoken with President Putin in the past week? Have you spoken with President Putin in the past week?
Yeah, I don't want to. I have learned things that will be very interesting. I think in the next few days you'll find out.
Consequences if there isn't some type of announcement of a meeting with President Putin and President Zelensky? And what could those consequences be?
We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what they do and what happens. I'm watching it very closely. Last week they lost 7,000, between the two countries, 7,313 soldiers, to be somewhat exact, for no reason whatsoever. And they're Russian and they're Ukrainian, but, they're soldiers. I want to see it end. Yep.
President, have you decided you're definitely going to send National Guard troops to Chicago?
I didn't say when, but the answer is, look, Chicago's very interesting because I watched Pritzker get up and say about, we don't need help, we're safe. But 2 weeks ago, they had 6 people murdered, and they had 24 people hit by bullets. Last week, as you know, it was 7 people, 24 people hit, and 7 people died. And then over the last 2 days, that was the crown jewel. They had, I guess, 9 or 10 killed, and 50 hit with bullets. And you have this governor get up, who's a terrible governor. Probably he and Gavin Newsom would be probably the 2 worst and most naive. They're naive. Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, and I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, they didn't do a good job with. They should have had the water coming down, like I said. We had to release the water. We had to go in and release the water to L.A. It's so badly run. But if I didn't send the National Guard into Los Angeles, I would be making an announcement today. I'd be talking about Huntsville, and I'd simultaneously be saying, by the way, the Olympics is not coming to Los Angeles. If we didn't do that, and even the sheriff, the top law enforcement person in Los Angeles said, we could not have handled it without them. So that's what he said.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe. Everyone likes you anyway. They probably wouldn't do it. But it's so dangerous. And there are people in this audience that you've suffered greatly. There are people in this audience that have been mugged and hurt badly, and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you were very brave in talking about it. You made quite an impression on a lot of people. I appreciate it. But there were other people in this room that have been hurt very badly just walking down the street in D.C. Washington, D.C. is a safe zone right now. It's a safe city. The restaurants are open. They're booming. You can't get a restaurant. New restaurants are announcing that they're going to be open. This took place in 12 days. Now it's 15 days, but 3 days ago it became what's known as a safe zone. It's a safe city. And this city was really bad. Really, really bad. We took 1,600 people out, hardcore criminals that will not be coming back anytime soon. And we're very proud of it. You know, to have our nation's capital lose every week. You know, it was like years, many years, where every single week somebody was killed for many, many, many consecutive weeks. This went on for years. And then we had, last week it was announced that nobody was killed last week. And I made that announcement in front of a very distinguished leader of a country. And I'm saying proudly, ladies and gentlemen, nobody was killed in Washington, D.C. this week. He looked at me like, what's that all about? I say, yeah, we have a little bit of a crime problem. And we don't have a crime problem in Washington anymore. And the mayor has been very helpful, and the police commission has been very helpful, and it's been a great team. And I would love to have Governor Pritzker call me. I'd gain respect for him and say, we do have a problem, and we'd love you to send in the troops, because you know what? The people, they have to be protected. I saw today on one of your networks, not a friendly network, except really the opposite, I would say, very unfriendly network. And they interviewed about 12 people on this morning. Most of them were African American, they were black. And they were saying, please, please, please let the president send in. These were people from Chicago. Please, we need help. We need help. We can't walk outside. We're petrified. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country. And that includes Baltimore. I saw where Governor Moore was asking me to take a walk down the street of Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a very unsafe place. It's rated number 4 in the city, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in the world. But, you know, we took care. This was a beautiful thing that happened in Washington because we showed that it could be done. And this wasn't just sending big, strong guys, and they are big and they are strong. You know, we had a great decision from the Supreme Court that had to do with sort of talent. It had to do with you are put down based on merit. You can hire based on merit. So merit for a soldier or for a policeman is strong, physically fit, having a certain ability, not a person that is woke and got the job through woke, but wasn't strong enough to lift a gun out of the holster, et cetera, et cetera. No, I looked at the police. As you know, last week I went over, we had a meeting there had to be 300 people, and they were all very impressive looking. And when the bad guys see them, they're not going to do a thing. And so I'm very proud of Washington. It serves as a template, and we're going to do it elsewhere. But Chicago is certainly going to be high. I would love to have him call. I would love the governor of Illinois. I'd be honored to take his call. All he has to do is say, sir, we need help. It's out of control. And everyone knows it is. He's not kidding anyone. I would love to have, I would say, Governor Moore call, because I watched him over the weekend trying to explain that Baltimore, what they need is housing. No, they don't need housing. They need to get rid of the criminals. These are hardcore criminals. You know, we took many people off the streets of Washington, D.C. They're hardcore. They're not going to be good. In 10 years, in 20 years, in 2 years, they're going to be criminals. They were born to be criminals, frankly. They were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day. They won't even remember that they did it. And we're not going to have those people. Washington, D.C. is now a safe zone. It's a safe place, and you can walk, Katie, you can walk right down the street with, by the way, one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen, which is her husband. He was a football player for like 11 years in the NFL. He's a big person. But big doesn't mean anything when they have guns and when they have knives and everything else that they have, right? But you can walk right down the street, even by yourself, and you're totally safe. Washington, D.C. is a great thing. Yes, ma'am, please.
Mr. President, as you're calling on Democratic leaders across the country to work with you on crime, do you see your efforts here in D.C., including, for example, working with Mayor Bowser here as a model for bringing more bipartisanship in matters not only with crime, but also issues that matter to everyday American people's lives?
So Mayor Bowser's been great. She could have taken the thing, oh, well, and then after I clean it up, they'll take credit for it. You know what they do is they take credit. Like, we cleaned up Los Angeles. We did a great job there. And it was overwhelming what was going on. And again, the police chief made a statement that we could not have done, there's no way they could handle it. You saw what was happening out there. It was going to be a disaster. We stopped it cold. If we didn't do that, would have been a very sad day. And you know, remember, we have the Olympics, we have the World Cup, we have all these things coming, and we have 250, all of these things coming. But I watched Newsom get up and say he's doing a great, he's not, we're the ones that did it, and that's okay, whatever it takes. But the main thing is but he got up and said, we did it. Well, he didn't want us there, and he's going to need us again because it's starting to form again. I see it. It's starting to form again. You know, we have to maintain. It's like maintenance on an airplane. You can buy it, but you have to maintain it. And if you don't maintain it, a good plane becomes very unsafe very quickly. So it's an honor to do it. A lot of presidents wouldn't do what I'm doing. I don't need this heat. But when I watched television last night and I'm watching the news and I see that 9 people were killed in Chicago and 54 were badly wounded with bullets, I say, that's not this country. We have to do something. And I do say this, I say this very much. I'm not speaking to anybody but them right now. I would love to receive calls from governors and mayors saying they need help. We'll help them. We have a lot of people. We have a great force. We have a great military force. You know, Pete will tell you that when I was running for office, and this was a big headline, I think, you know, probably got me a couple of votes, but you couldn't sign people in the military. Nobody wanted to join the military, the Army, Air Force, the Navy, Marines, Space Force, Coast Guard. We never forget Coast Guard because they've done such a great job. Never. But nobody wanted to join any of them. We were way below what we wanted. Every single one. The closest was the Marines, whatever that is. You'll explain that to me. But the closest was the Marines. But every service was way down, way down. And then I got elected, and our country's the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. Everybody's talking about the USA. They're talking about the job that we're doing. Everybody. We have the best economy. We have a very, very important decision being made by the Supreme Court because our country is the richest, the strongest, the most powerful. But if for some reason some liberal court, I'm talking about the court that just ruled, where even an Obama judge voted in favor of us, which I gave him a compliment yesterday, as you know. I said that took great courage. But it's a liberal court, and it's going up to the Supreme Court, who I think have been incredible people. I think they've made very wise decisions. But the tariff question because without the tariffs, this country is in serious, serious trouble. We've taken in almost $17 trillion of investment is coming in. Most of it is coming because of tariffs. And if for some reason somebody wanted to be politically correct, I actually think it's unpolitically correct. I think politically correct is to approve it, because there's nothing so popular as what's happened to our country. Our country is doing so well. But we had a liberal court gave us a very shocking ruling, and that ruling is basically saying that the trillions of dollars that are pouring into our country, putting us in a position like no country is anywhere in the world, that they'd like to see us that taken away. By the way, a lot of the people behind that lawsuit, that particular, are from foreign countries, I might add.
There's a video that is circulating online now of the White House where a window is open to the residents upstairs and somebody is throwing a big bag out the window. Have you seen this?
No, that's probably AI generated.
So
Actually, you can't open the windows. You know why? They're all heavily armored and bulletproof.
So that's a fake video?
Well, it's got to be, because I know every window up there. The last place I'd be doing it is that, because there's cameras all over the place, right? Including yours. No, but every window, I've never seen a window that's... In fact, my wife was complaining about it the other day. She said, love to have a little fresh air come in, but you can't. They're bulletproof. And number one, they're sealed. And number two, each window weighs about 600 pounds. You have to be pretty strong to open them up. No, that has to be... Where was the window? Let me see.
Maybe from the renovations.
Which is the window?
It looks like this is on the 15th Street side, I think.
Yeah.
So right here.
Yeah, those windows are sealed. Those windows are they're all sealed. You can't open them.
What you were saying regarding the federal...
It's the kind of thing they do. And one of the problems we have with AI, it's both good and bad. If something happens really bad, just blame AI. But also they create things, you know. It works both ways. If something happens that's really bad, maybe I'll have to just blame AI. But there's truth to it, because I see so many phony things. I saw something as I was growing up, from the time I was a baby till now. I said, who did that? It was AI generated. So it's a little bit scary, to be honest with you. But those windows are all very heavily sealed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to follow up with what you were saying regarding that federal appellate court that ruled against you and your administration as it relates to your ability.
Well, they ruled against our country, the court, and they ruled against us before. It's a very liberal court.
You called it highly partisan in your...
Well, it certainly is. It certainly is.
And in fact, it was along ideological lines, 7-4.
Well, except that we actually got one of the Obama judges that was appointed by President Obama voted in favor of the tariffs, because he felt it was imperative for our country to thrive and survive even. And I gave him credit. I said, you know what? That took a lot of courage for him to do it, because you don't see that often.
So my question is, I suspect you're going to appeal that all the way to the Supreme Court.
Well, we already have, yeah. In fact, we're doing something else. We're going to be going to the Supreme Court, we think, tomorrow, because we need an early decision. I mean, look, the financial fabric of our country, we're a rich, incredible country right now. And we're able to, you know, other countries use tariffs on us for years, and we never did. I did a lot during my first term, but then we had COVID and we had to focus on other things. You couldn't be tariffing Italy, Spain, France, as they were dying by the thousands and millions. But we did with China, and China paid us billions and billions of dollars. And I started the process, but then I had to end it a little bit because of COVID. We focused on that. But no... It's a very important decision, and frankly, if they make the wrong decision, it would be a devastation for our country. We've taken in trillions of dollars, and by the way, all these countries signed agreements. As an example, they're all happy, everybody's happy, but some whack job put in a lawsuit. It went before a very liberal court, and the liberal court ruled, it was 11, they ruled 7-4. With one of the most liberal of them all voting in our favor, because they're patriots. I think I give tremendous credit to that judge. And now it's going to the Supreme Court. Now we're going to be asking for early admittance. We're going tomorrow, and we're going to ask for an expedited ruling, because When you look at the stock market's down today, the stock market's down because of that. Because the stock market needs the tariffs. They want the tariffs. If you look at AI, all of those, all of that money that's going to be invested, trillions and trillions of dollars, the biggest thing, bigger than the internet, I suspect. It's the internet plus 3 or 4 other things combined. We are leading very substantially with AI. We're leading because of tariffs. We're leading because of talent, and this is where they'd like to be. But without the tariffs, we wouldn't have a chance because we wouldn't be able to protect those investments of the companies coming in. So if you took away tariffs, we could end up being a third world country. That's how big the ruling. So we're asking for an expedited ruling.
As a backstop to that, President, you have a Republican-controlled Congress. You control the House. You control the Senate.
Yeah, but we don't have 60 votes. We don't have 60 votes. I'd love to do that. Oh, if we had 60 senators, if we got the 60 votes, we would get them. But we need 60 votes, and we need a certain number in the House. I think we'd get. I don't know. We have about 5 of them here. Would everybody agree with me on tariffs? Without tariffs, we're a different country. We have taken in so much money. And here's the thing. We signed a deal with Japan. They're paying us hundreds of billions of dollars. We signed a deal with South Korea. We signed a deal with the European Union. We signed a deal with Europe. And those countries are paying us $950 billion. And they're happy about it. They're okay. As one of them said, it's amazing that we got away with it so long. One of my friends, a leader of one of the countries, and they're fine with it. They all signed. If that ruling ever went against us, I guess we'd have to give back hundreds of billions. We would have to give trillions and trillions of dollars back to countries that have been ripping us off for the last 35 years. And I can't imagine it happening. On a legal basis, they have no legal basis whatsoever. But on a common sense basis, it would destroy America. Okay.
You talked about controlling the sky. On Sunday, the satellite signal of Ursula von der Leyen's plane was alleged.
With Ursula? Well, she had an interesting event. She's a tremendous woman. And so what are you asking me about her?
NATO is concerned about it, and too about this.
True, NATO is concerned about it. Well, nobody knows where it came from, but they did take away her ability to use a phone. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that could happen to me. I'd be very happy.
Mr. President, reducing the tariffs on India from 50%.
What does that mean?
Are you considering taking away some of the tariffs that you've imposed on India?
No, we get along with India very well. But India has, you have to understand, for many years it was a one-sided relationship. Only now since I came along, and because of the power that we have with tariffs, India was charging us tremendous tariffs, about the highest in the world. They were about the highest in the world, number one. And we, therefore, weren't doing much business with India, but they were doing business with us because we weren't charging them. Foolishly, we weren't charging them. So they would send in massive, everything they made, they'd send it in, pour it into our country. Therefore, it wouldn't be made here, which is a negative. But we would not send in anything because they were charging us 100% tariffs. And, I'll give you an example. Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson couldn't sell into India. There was a 200% tariff on a motorcycle. So what happens? Harley Davidson went to India and built a motorcycle plant. And now they don't have to pay tariffs. Same thing as us. So what we're doing is literally thousands of companies are coming into the U.S., car companies, AI, but, more traditionally, car companies. We have so many car company factories under construction or being designed right now. And they're coming from China, they're coming from Mexico, I must tell you, and they're coming from Canada, a lot of them coming from Canada. But they're coming into our country because they want to build here. And they want to build here for 2 reasons. Number one, they'd like to be here. And number 2, the tariffs are protecting them. And number 3, they want to avoid paying tariffs. When they build their cars here, they don't have any tariffs to pay. When you build here, you don't have any tariffs.
Mr. President,
go ahead,
in light of the Minnesota shooting last week, the Department of Homeland Security is now awarding more than $100 million to hundreds of faith organizations across the country to help them ramp up security. What's your vision for further protecting religious liberty across the country amid incidents of threats and
So
violence?
religious liberty is so important, and we're talking about every religion now, and we're doing things on that nobody else has ever done, and we're going to be having a big announcement in about 2 weeks on that question. Yeah, please.
On Space Command, sir, are you concerned that people may not be willing to relocate from Colorado to Alabama?
No, I'm not worried. We'll get somebody else. I mean, the problem with Colorado is they have a very corrupt voting system. Look, I have so many friends in Colorado. Anytime you have mail-in voting, you have corrupt elections. Very simple. It's very simple. Even Jimmy Carter said it with his commission. They set up a commission with him and Scoop Jackson and some people, highly regarded people. And they said the finding was, if you have mail-in voting, you will have corrupt elections. Well, your radical left governor decided that he was going to have all mail-in voting in Colorado. Once you have all mail-in voting, and for whatever reason, the Democrats cheat. And they cheat like, they're not stupid. That's the only thing. They're no good on policy. They're no good on management. They're no good at government. But they're great at cheating. And they stick together, too. I give them credit for sticking together. Please.
Obviously, this is a big win for national security, moving this to Alabama. We've all can agree with that.
Big.
Is there any idea of the economic impact this has on the state and on that local area?
Katie, do you want to answer that?
Look, I mean, go ahead.
Please go.
This is going to be tremendous. I mean, the state of Alabama, what we've seen through this process is the worst of Washington. We've seen politics get in the way of what is best for the warfighter, what's best for national security. And the state of Alabama is about to show the country the best among us. So we know the economic impact is going to be tremendous. There at Redstone Arsenal, we're proud to house everything from the FBI to headquarters there for material command to a number of things. We obviously have NASA with Marshall Space Flight Center, and so this naturally fits within. When you look at the decision matrix that they placed in front of us, that's why we ranked so high, is because we have the resources necessary and the ability to build out quickly to meet the needs in front of us. As far as economic impact, it would be tremendous. Does anybody have an exact number? 1,600 jobs.
3,000 spinoff.
With 3,000 spinoff. Look at this. This is teamwork right here. So we are really proud, and the people of Alabama are ready to get to work.
And I've got a housing question, if you could, just for a second, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
please.
Owning a home and going about the American dream seems like it's out of touch for a lot of Americans. Just recently, you pushed out a statement about addressing an emergency housing situation.
That's right. We're thinking about doing that.
Yeah, can you just...
Well, we need a little help from the Fed. We have a man named Jerome Too Late Powell. You probably heard of him. He's too late. He's way too late. And the economy is so strong that it's pushing through that. Normally, it would have been much tougher, but we're doing so well that we're pushing through it. But it makes it very hard for people to get mortgages because too late is too late. Very simple. He's too late. And probably political, whatever. He wasn't too late before the election. Before the election, he was cutting rates, right? Because he was hoping that, I guess, Biden would get in or that Kamala would. He was a big Biden guy. Explain that one. And then he was a Kamala person. But he was hoping, I guess, she'd win, I guess. I don't know. It didn't work out too well. But, yeah, we need a very serious cut. I think that if you look back many decades ago, the United States was always the lowest, even if they were doing badly. The United States was, because without the United States, everything in the world would die. It's true. It's so powerful. It's so big. And I made it really big in the first 4 years. Then it started to degenerate with what this Biden administration did. But we built it up to a level that I never thought we could be at this quickly. We're the hottest, we're the best financially. The money coming in is so big because of tariffs and other things, but because of tariffs. Tariff gets us even those other things. Plus, it gets us great negotiating. I settled 7 wars, and numerous of those wars were because of trade, and numerous of the trade deals that I made were because of tariffs. It gives you a great negotiating ability. If that ability were taken away from us by a liberal court acting on essentially foreign nations, asking to get help from the United States government, when they've been doing this to us for 40 years, that's why we have $38 trillion in debt. We won't have it for long if they let us if they allow us to do what everybody knows we should be able to do. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, another Biden-era action that you're now reversing is that you signed a deal last week to make federal buildings adopt and embrace classical architecture styles again. Can you talk to us about why you do that, and also what's your vision?
Well, we want to see beautiful buildings. Now, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder. I've seen architectural reviews over the years. I'm an expert at it. I've gotten a lot of great reviews. But I've seen buildings that I didn't think were very good get great reviews, and I've seen great buildings get bad reviews. So, but it's just a standard. We want to have a good standard. We're building something here. You know, for 150 years, they wanted a ballroom at the White House. We're doing something at the highest level, using great architects and all. And, you know, it's very exciting. But we have a lot of interesting things happening architecturally in D.C. And D.C. is like a different place. And, you know, even the contractor said, "Sir, we walked down today, we feel like much safer." It's like a different place. Washington, D.C. is great. Now, we're going to also beautify it. We're going to put a topping on the roads. We're not going to rip them apart and take 4 years to build a road that was exactly the same by the time you build it. But we're going to put toppings. We're going to put new medians in. We're going to get the graffiti off. We're going to put tiles up in the tunnels where the tiles are missing. We'll do the whole tunnel instead of, you know, a little area where you see new tiles, old tiles that never look too good. But they could use it. You know, they've been up for 50 years. They've served their duty. But we're going to make this within about a 20-mile radius from the White House. We're going to have this place spick and span. It's going to be crime-free, and it's going to be spick and span. It's going to be, you'll be proud of Washington again. Go ahead, please.
Sir, China's having a massive military parade that President Putin and Kim Jong-un will be attending. Do you interpret that as a challenge to the U.S.? And are you concerned at all about those countries trying to be some sort of counterweight?
Not at all. China needs us, and I have a very good relationship with President Xi, as you know, but China needs us much more than we need them. No, I don't see that at all, no.
One more.
And I had actually a very good meeting with President Putin a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if anything comes out of it. If it doesn't, we'll take a different stance.
March today in California ruled that your deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles was illegal. Do you have any response?
Well, it was a radical left judge. But very importantly, what did you not tell me in that question or statement that you made? Pretty much of a statement, I think.
Well, I was asking for your response.
No, you didn't say what the judge said, though. The judge said, but you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can continue to be in place. That's all we need. But why didn't you put that as part of your statement? Because the same judge ruled exactly as you said, except the judge said that you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can stay, they can remain, they can do what they have to do. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thank you. Let's head out. Let's go, guys. Thank you. Thank you, press. Thanks, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Keep going. Thanks, guys. Thank you, press.